Hello and welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. As we move into autumn, I'm looking at more and more autumnal subjects, and today I'm going to be painting these beautiful Michaelmas daisies that are such a distinctive feature of autumn near where I live. And of course, this time of year coincides with the release of our new book, Flowers in Watercolor Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner, which comes out later this month in the UK and then next spring elsewhere in the world. We are so proud of this book and so thrilled at the way that it's turned out. If you're interested in taking a closer look, then please follow the links below. So now it's time to get on with this demonstration for you of these Michaelmas daisies. Please pause the video or take a screenshot now if you want to refer to the pencil sketch of these lovely simple flowers that I've sketched lightly in pencil onto my watercolour paper. The next thing I did was to use masking fluid and to carefully paint over the flowers to protect them so that I can paint a really interesting sort of washy background without having to worry about preserving the white of the paper. I'm using a piece of hot press watercolour paper by Saunders Waterford. It's taped to my board and my board is flat on my desk. I'm using my large wash brush, which is a 1.5 inch Princeton Aqua Elite Mottler, to wet the page. And now this is permanent yellow and I'm streaking this across the wet page. You can see the colour is diffusing. I'm trying to keep it behind the flowers and lighter at the top and darker at the bottom. Introducing some sap green to create this wonderful variegated wash, spraying it with a misting spray to get the paint to flow, and then tipping and tilting the board so that the paint runs across the paper, creating really interesting patterns and giving me my sort of fairly impressionistic background wash. This is perylene green to darken up around the base of the flowers a little, although this colour will dry back quite a lot lighter than it looks at the moment. It still gives me that slightly sort of more shadowy impression around the base. Using a fan brush, I can drag a bit of the colour around, over and around the flowers, but still trying to keep it nice and light across the top of the page. Dipping into a bit more sap green and pulling a bit more green colour between all those yellow highlights. Quite often with this method you can find a bit of excess water pooling on the page. Simply take a piece of tissue paper or kitchen towel and just gently dab onto those areas where there's a lot of water. Try not to press too hard because you don't want to lift out too much paint. You can see it's lightening up in a few areas where I'm dabbing, but I'm being really careful still to make sure that I've got plenty of paint left there. I'm now spattering in some of that lovely permanent yellow into the wet wash. You can see it's softening and diffusing and adding texture and sort of brighter elements to the wash. I can then use the fan brush once I've rinsed it out just to drag up some colour from the page. You can see the shape of the bristles of the fan brush are giving me some quite nice but very subtle textures where I'm just moving a little bit of the paint around. And now dipping into that nice dark green and spattering some darker green spots around the base of the flowers, just a few darker green spots slightly higher up for a bit of contrast and texture. And then I can spatter in some more of my lovely bright yellow colour. Building up the layers to suggest this out of focus soft background. I've left my background to dry for a couple of minutes. It's still damp, but most of the shine has gone from the paper, so now's the right time to be able to sprinkle a little bit of fine ground table salt into it. I don't want many grains, just a few little grains to create tiny little blooms, just to add to the texture that's already there. And now I need to leave everything to dry completely. Once it's completely dry, and sorry that the light's not quite so good at the moment, it's a different time of day, then brush off any remaining salt crystals that haven't dissolved. It has to be bone dry before you remove the masking fluid, otherwise the paper might tear, so it's best to leave it overnight. And I'm using an adhesive eraser, also known as a rubber cement pickup, to remove the masking fluid nice and cleanly. You can rub it off with a clean finger, but I prefer to use this tool. I think it makes for a much easier removal. Now here is my painting with the background finished and the flowers ready to paint. I'll be painting all of the flowers in the same way, building up layers of colour, starting with the lightest colours first. For the petals, I'm using lilac, permanent mauve and Windsor violet, and starting with the lighter colour, which is the lilac, for most of the petals, dropping in some of the slightly darker colours as I go. I'm using a size 3 round brush for this, and then tidying up the petals, keeping them nice and neat with a small detail brush. Once the first layer has dried, I can darken up some of the petals that are behind others, put in a little bit of darker value around the centre of the flower as well, just to build up the tone and the shadow, and maybe get in the kind of hint of a few veins on these slender petals. For this, you can see I'm using my small detail brush. It's a Pro Art size 0 detail brush. So just working around the flowers, putting in the veins and the shadows, particularly around the centre, because then that will make the flowers really stand out once I put in that lovely contrasting yellow and orange into the middle of these violet shades and hues. It's really important to let your flower petals completely dry before you start adding the yellow, because if it's wet and if it mixes, you'll end up with a bit of a dull brown. So I'm dotting in permanent yellow. And once I've got my centre covered in yellow with a few little white highlights, I'm dotting in some cadmium orange around the lower edge just to brighten that up and add a bit of shape, shadow and form. Once all my flowers are done, I can begin to work on the leaves. This is a mixture of sap green and perylene green, and I'm just going over my outlines, building up these very simple leaves and stems that are so distinctive of the Michaelmas daisy. Again, using the size 3 round brush and tidying up a few smaller areas with the detail brush if needed. And then once all the leaves and stems are finished, I can add a little bit of the purple colour just to the tips of the buds, as you can see here, and then deepen up the shadow around the flower centres if needed in a few places, just to really make those flowers pop at the end. Of course, that's using the small detail brush, which is really fine. And here's the finished painting. And now for one of my favourite parts, which is removing the tape and seeing how the painting looks with its clean white border. As you're removing the tape, pull it away from the painting, just in case you get the odd tear, and then you won't tear the painting itself. And here's the finished painting. Well, I hope you enjoyed painting these beautiful autumn Michaelmas daisies with me, and that you'll give something similar to this a go yourself. And I really hope that you've enjoyed that sneak peek of our new book. Don't forget to check out the links below, as pre-orders are available now. Many thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, then please click on the thumbs up button. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, then why not consider doing so? It's free to do, and it really helps with our reach here on YouTube. And thank you so much to everybody that supports us on Patreon. We couldn't run this free-to-view YouTube channel without you. I'll see you again soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.